Vincenzo'S Go Crypto Investing this September the 16th, 2025 on a new time cryptocurrency update. Bell notification and comment down below for free as the excitement is building as the Federal Reserve and the markets have built in across the financials greater than a 98% chance that the Federal Reserve, after their multi-day meeting tomorrow in the afternoon when they talk at the Fed Open Market Committee meeting, that they will lower the benchmark overnight rate at least a quarter basis points. And that's the only question now. How much will it be? A quarter, a half? I think it'll be a quarter. And then you might see a retaliatory sell-off because they've been, the markets, the financials, and especially the commodity markets, the last 30 days since Jerome Powell said he was going to pivot and lower rates in the September meeting a month ago. They've been buying and buying big, forcing and pushing gold over 3,700 on spot price for the first time ever and a new record high. Silver closed at a 14.5-year high. It is making a run at just below $43 on the news, up from about 36. The cryptocurrencies have been consolidating sideways. We've had a volatility warning for this week as we expect a lot of market activity due to the Federal Reserve, and you can see the DXY is down at a 4.5-year low in comparison to the Japanese yen. You can see it's down to 96.75. And if we look at the U.S. dollar, and that's why you're here, and this is how we're becoming asset millionaires, because we buy assets that appreciate in a chronic dollar depreciating world. And you can see the critical area that we're at right now. If you break this recent low from back here in early July, and we're just above it right now, you can see the next area of major support is down here at that orange trading and support, the orange box back down there. That starts at around 92, and then the bottom part of that box goes to 83. And when's the last time we hit 83? Back here in 2014, coming off of the financial crises, where we've seen a low of about 70, right? Very bad. And that's something that we could be tempting during the Trump administration, as I believe he's forcing Powell out. Jerome Powell, the Fed chairman, is up for his 14-year election next year, and he will be bullied out. He will not be allowed to be revoted back in. And they're going to stack the Federal Reserve with a bunch of cronies that are going to have horrible monetary and fiscal policy that is not only going to be inflationary, but it might be one of the more inflationary and detrimental pieces of monetary policy since the 60s and 70s. And it's going to be very interesting to see how this plays out. But what I do know is I know the dollar is going lower, and I think the dollar is going lower big. And I think over the next 24 months, between now and 2 years from now, in 2027, in the fall, I think we're going to be at least 13 to potentially 20% lower in the United States dollar. I think sometime next year we're going to be between 92 and 82. And I think it's going to get very bad, and that's going to force assets to appreciate more. You can see gold futures is holding at 37.23, all-time high. Gold bullion spot price is at 36.84, nearing the all-time high that it set yesterday. If it's not high above it, silver is at $42. Might be a decent buying opportunity if you've never bought into the mining stocks. You can see some of the silver ones down 3 or 4% today after they've had an extraordinary rally. So you guys might want to keep paying attention to those, because gold's going to 5,000, silver's going to 75. The U.S. dollar is tanking on their chronic dollar depreciation. You can see the Bitcoin price. You would expect some kind of a rally with a rate cut this week, but maybe the stage in the spot where the Bitcoin price is, it's just time for it to start consolidating to the downside. But that's still to be determined, because we're sitting right along, and we're just trading along now, just above the 50-day in the daily, and just below and along the 3.5-year pattern support, which we're trying to get back in. And that's what's either going to happen with their Fed meeting tomorrow. It's either going to be very bullish, and they're going to like the dovishness about the Fed going to be lowering rates all through next year, and it could have a big pump like that, where you go up near its all-time high. Or if they don't like what the Fed says, or it's just to sell the fact and buy the rumor, you could see a big fall all the way down near that $95,000. There's a big spread that could take place when the Fed finally talks and announces its monetary policy tomorrow afternoon. So that's the area we're watching for the Bitcoin price, the critical area, the multi-year pattern support that we've been on for several days. Same thing with the Ethereum price. It looks like we might actually be topping out on a triple top, and you can see we are actually trading down closer to that short-term in green uptrending support. If you break that, we'd be looking at coming down to a megaphone neckline support again for a retest. So that's what we're going to continue to pay attention to in the Ethereum. The XLM price, you can see, is still consolidating and just above currently. We'll see what the daily is. It is currently just above the 50-day moving average with a slightly uptrending 100-day moving average. And as long as you're above that 50-day moving average, you can try to run up to the 43 cents. Like one of our tracks shows, but then it shows a harsh rejection. If you slip that 50-day moving average again, you're going to want to trade down closer to the 100-day moving average and that 36 cents that's sitting here at the top part of this green support and resistance box. So that's something that we're paying attention to, because if you slipped into this box too much, you could come very, very quickly down to that 31 cents. The XRP is the same thing. You can see it's still continuing to be rejected off of that 307 that it tried to snip back above the other day, but got rejected. Now it's sitting just below that 307 at about 304 and just above the 294 50-day moving average. And then the 280 200-day is right below that. And then the 256 200-day is running right along the 255. And if we want to get bullish in the short term off the rate hikes, you come up, hold it, and then continue up. The bearish route is you slip back below the 50, slip below the 100, and come make a run towards that $2.55 level. And that's something that we are paying attention to here with the Bitcoin price. And if we go look at if there's any news associated with the Bitcoin price, Bitcoin up 99% in yearly gains, surpassing altcoin dominance. Bitcoin eyes long liquidations as gold passes 3.7K for the first time. Bitcoin attempts to liquidate longs at the Wall Street Open with $115,000 of forced market, are flipping short ahead of Wednesday's Federal Reserve. Gold hits fresh all-time high above $3,700 before correcting. Data from Cointelegraph Market Pro and TradingView shows. It doesn't want us to read this because I hit something real quick. We'll get back into that one. Everyone's favorite in the crypto sphere, Peter Schiff. Peter Schiff, the outspoken gold advocate, warned that Bitcoin may be a topping out as traders await a Federal Reserve decision this week. According to the post on X, Schiff said gold and silver have broken out while Bitcoin is showing signs of losing momentum. The comment has drawn attention because it comes just before the key Federal Reserve meeting that may expect to affect risk assets. Bitcoin has been stuck near the $116,000 level, has not been able to push well above past the mark, even after recent gains. Before the market reports, BTC logged a 4% rise over the past week, but ran into strong resistance at roughly 116,000, which traders are watching closely. The hesitation is part of why some voices like Schiff have warned a top could be forming. The Fed is about to make a major policy mistake by cutting interest rates into rising inflation. Gold and silver have broken out, with the rally finally confirmed by mining stocks leading the way. Yet, instead of breaking out, Bitcoin is topping out. Time to change horses. Holders. Fed timing and the rate cut question. Report have linked shift warning to the timing of that more, arguing that a policy shift from the Fed could alter flows into crypto and other risk assets in ways that market does not yet fully price. Traders are praising both macro signals and on-chain data that they set up for what may be a volatile season, as old Vincenzo'S Gold Crypto Investing is quoted as saying he has a volatility warning. In effect, Schiff constrains Bitcoin flatness with what he calls strong moves in gold and silver in the past. He suggests the mining sector have confirmed the metals rally, and then added that Bitcoin by comparison looks tired. The blunt comparison is part of the wider message that some investors might want to rebalance into metals if the current pattern persists, how other analysts see it. And Peter Schiff is right on his monetary policies. He's been ahead of the game for 25 years, 30 years. His old man was a one-of-a-kind thinker, and Peter Schiff learned from that. And the monetary and fiscal disaster that they're doing is going to put us, as we're already in stagflation, they're going to force us, and I believe we're going into something that's going to be greater than the Great Depression of the 1930s. I believe we're reliving the 1920s, the Roaring 20s. That's right. Remember the Roaring 20s? Everybody making money, stock market at all-time highs, investments shooting up, assets going crazy, standard of living at the highest it's ever been, all the way up until about 1928. And then it started to flip in reverse, and then wars and tensions, and then the stock market crashed in the 30s. Then we had a big drought that caused famine and starvation, with a decade-long heat wave that contributed into hyperinflation and a Great Depression. Nobody had jobs, waiting 3 weeks for bread, right? I think we're living through the 1920s. Everyone's getting all euphoric again. And I think there's something massive at the end of this. There's something massive that's going to change the whole structure of what's happening, and there's going to be a massive worldwide financial crisis and a sovereign debt crisis in the United States, and then all systematic other countries will see the problem and the default in the U.S. It's going to cascade them off the dollar even more, tanking the dollar. And I think the United States is going to have a massive, massive inflation problem, which we already have. It's going to turn into a hyperinflation, because when I think something bad's going to happen near 2030, I think we got a year or two left of very, very good gains in the stock market and in crypto. But then I think the closer you get to 2030, 2028, I think you're going to start to see the seasons change. And I think there's going to be a drastic outside existential thing that tips it over the top. And I think it could be Bitcoin this time, because it's infiltrated and infected the rest of the financials across any sector with all these quasi-Bitcoin treasuries where they've leveraged and mortgaged their own companies to only hope Bitcoin goes up. But this is just me filibustering and talking about some of the things that I think are going to happen. I think it's going to get very interesting at the end of this decade, going into the very early 2030s, as I think we're going to be in a Great Depression again in this country, and then our government will do the only thing they know. I think we'll be deeply in negative interest rates by then, and they're just going to continue to print. They will hand out, and I think they will bring in wage and price controls. I think they will bring in a fixed government income that they pay everybody to try to offset the massive inflation, which will only make it worse, just as the Inflation Reduction Act was the opposite. The Big Beautiful Bill is one of the worst bills as far as inflation creation in U.S. history, beating out the Inflation Reduction Act from Joe Biden. But we're going to continue to educate you on this every day and keep you up to date on this. So if you're not hearing about it, you're at least thinking about it and hearing it for the first time, to try to prepare yourself. Even though time's running out, assets are massively higher than they were when you first started hearing me talk about this 5 years ago. It's time to get prepared. It's not too late. You have to get educated, and you must take charge. Peace and love. The Rock Eyebrow Jetty, my future asset millionaires.